You can't build peace on empty stomachs. Norman Borlaug, a scientist who quietly saved billions. When people talk about world-changing heroes, they often think of generals who win wars or politicians who change governments. Rarely do they think of scientists working in dusty fields, carefully bending over plants, or scribbling notes under the hot sun. But one such man, Norman Ernest Borlaug, may have done more to save lives than anyone else in history. Through a lifetime of perseverance, vision, and scientific brilliance, Borlaug helped avert famines that experts once predicted would kill hundreds of millions. His work in agriculture launched the Green Revolution, a transformation in farming that allowed countries like India, Pakistan, and Mexico to feed their rapidly growing populations. To this day, his legacy lives on in the full plates of billions of people who never even knew his name. Growing up in Iowa, Borlaug was born on March 25, 1914, on a small farm near Cresco, Iowa. He was the grandson of Norwegian immigrants, and from his earliest years, he experienced the demanding rhythms of farm life, planting seeds, battling pests, and watching the skies for rain. In his one-room schoolhouse, he proved himself a diligent student. Outside the classroom, he wrestled, and it was wrestling that taught him lessons in persistence and grit. He often said that the mental toughness he developed on the wrestling mat would later help him push through setbacks in science and agriculture. But Borlaug's childhood also introduced him to hardship. During the Great Depression, he witnessed hunger and unemployment firsthand. Later, while working with the Civilian Conservation Corps, he saw young men collapse from malnutrition. Those haunting images stayed with him forever. The idea that brilliant, hardworking people could waste away simply for lack of food. He studied forestry and plant pathology at the University of Minnesota, eventually earning his PhD in 1942. Unlike many of his peers, Borlaug wasn't drawn to glamorous laboratory work. He wanted to solve practical problems in the field, problems like hunger. The Mexico years. Battling hunger with science in 1944, Borlaug joined a Rockefeller Foundation project to improve wheat production in Mexico. At that time, Mexican farmers were battling low yields, plant diseases, and food shortages. Many doubted whether science could make much of a difference. But Borlaug was relentless. He moved to Mexico, where he spent years working in wheat fields, often under punishing heat. He experimented with crossbreeding thousands of wheat varieties, working long days and even sleeping in barns or tents when necessary. The great enemy was wheat rust, a fungal disease that could wipe out entire harvests. Borlaug bred new wheat strains that resisted rust, grew shorter stalks that didn't collapse under the weight of their own grain, and yielded more food per acre. By the 1950s, his varieties were transforming Mexican agriculture. Wheat harvests tripled, and by 1956, Mexico was producing enough wheat to feed its own population, a remarkable turnaround. The Green Revolution in South Asia. Borlaug's success in Mexico was just the beginning. By the 1960s, India and Pakistan were on the brink of disaster. Populations were exploding, while harvests were stagnant. Famines loomed, and many experts predicted mass starvation. Borlaug arrived with his high-yield wheat, but adoption wasn't simple. Farmers were skeptical, governments were bureaucratic, and there were political risks. In India, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi took a personal interest in Borlaug's work, seeing it as a lifeline for her people. The results were extraordinary. In just a few years, wheat harvests doubled. By the late 1960s, India and Pakistan went from famine fears to self-sufficiency. Entire warehouses overflowed with grain. Where the world had expected despair, there was relief. This transformation became known as the Green Revolution, not just a change in crops, but a revolution in how humanity approached food production. For his work, Borlaug was hailed as the man who had saved over 1 billion lives from starvation. Recognition in the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1970, Borlaug was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The committee declared that he had helped provide bread for a hungry world, and that without his work, hunger might have sparked wars and chaos across continents. Unlike many laureates, Borlaug didn't stop after his Nobel recognition. He remained active in research, education, and advocacy. He wasn't afraid to challenge critics, often warning that complacency in agriculture could lead to new crises. The fight against hunger in Africa. In the 1980s and 1990s, Borlaug turned his attention to Africa, where famine and poverty were devastating communities. There, the challenges were different: poor infrastructure, lack of fertilizer, weak markets, and sometimes political instability. Still, Borlaug insisted that Africa deserved the same agricultural opportunities that had transformed Asia and Latin America. He worked with the Sasakawa Africa Association, traveling widely, training farmers, and helping spread improved crop varieties and farming methods. Though progress was uneven, his efforts helped spark agricultural growth in several African nations and inspired future generations of scientists and policymakers to continue the work. A humble giant, despite his enormous achievements, Borlaug remained remarkably modest. He never sought the spotlight and often expressed frustration that his work was less glamorous than politics or business. He famously said, "You can't build peace on empty stomachs." Borlaug believed that feeding the hungry was the foundation of human dignity, opportunity, and stability. He urged the world to keep innovating, warning that climate change, soil depletion, and growing populations meant that the fight against hunger was never truly over. Later years and legacy. In 1986, Borlaug helped establish the World Food Prize, often called the Nobel Prize for Food and Agriculture. This annual award honors individuals who make outstanding contributions to improving the quality, quantity, and availability of food. Even in his later years, Borlaug remained active as a professor at Texas A&M University, mentoring students and continuing research. He was still traveling, advising, and inspiring well into his 90s. On September 12, 2009, Norman Borlaug passed away at the age of 95. By then, historians estimated that his work had saved more than 1 billion lives. Few people in history can claim such a legacy. Why Norman Borlaug matters today? Borlaug's story is not just about science, it's about human survival and hope. He proved that knowledge, perseverance, and compassion could change the destiny of nations. While others predicted doom, he rolled up his sleeves and got to work in the fields. Today, with challenges like climate change, water scarcity, and population growth, the world again faces questions about how to feed billions. Borlaug's life reminds us that solutions are possible, but they require courage, innovation, and above all, the belief that no person should go hungry. As he once said in reflecting on his life's work, "I cannot live comfortably in the midst of abject hunger and poverty and human misery if I have the possibility of doing something about it." And he did. He fed the world. Thanks for watching.